Alright, guys.
So we have one section left in this chapter, and then we will be learning, like spending, it says practice test tomorrow, but then you guys have a 4-day weekend, so I'm not gonna give you a test right after that. So there'll be another practice test the day you get back, which will be a Tuesday, right? And then Wednesday you'd have your test. Just today? Okay.
I'll have to let her know.
Hey, notes are like kind of hard to read and this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we are going to look at equations of circles today. So there's times you're gonna be given a circle and you're gonna have to write the equation. And other times you're gonna have the equation and you have to figure out the center and radius of the circle. And then you can draw the circle from that. Okay, so I'll have to give you some graph paper when you're doing your assignment today so that you can graph the circles. So first of all, the generic equation for a circle is right here, okay? And when you have the equation of the circle written out, you can tell what the center of the circle is by looking at this H and that K. So if this was x minus 2, the x coordinate of the center of your circle would be whatever H is. Okay, so if it was x minus 2, that would tell us this is 2. If this was x plus 4, let's say, what this would be is the opposite of plus 4, so it'd be negative 4. So in this case, it would be K, okay? So when you're going to do, wait, no, I didn't say that right. I'm confused. Sorry. You change the sign on both of them. So if this was x minus 2, this would be a positive 2. If this was x plus 4, this would be a minus 4. So you take the opposite of both of them to get your x and your y. And then this number is your radius squared. And to graph it, we'll always need to know what the radius is. So you take the square root of that. So if it was an easy number like 16, and you took the square root of 16, that would tell you that your radius is 4. So if I look at this page right here, again, this is the equation of the center of the circle, where r is the radius, and again, you take the square root of that, r squared, and hk is the center. Once you get that, what we're gonna do today is plot the center of the circle, and then I'll show you how you would count out to the right, you'd count up, you'd count left, you'd count down, and you make those 4 dots, and then you would draw your circle from that.
So you have x minus h squared and y minus k squared. To find the radius, once you know, if you know all 4 of those, you can, I don't know how to phrase this.
Yeah, but you don't know the x and the y.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you knew all 4 variables, Christian is saying if you knew the X and the H and the Y and the K, you should be able to find the R, which is true. But, you only know the H and the K
Okay.
and then the R, okay? Alright, now, sometimes what's gonna happen is they're gonna give you the center of a circle to be like 0, 0, and then they'll tell you what your radius is. When your centers are 0, you do not have to do, cause it's always X is the opposite of this, so you don't have to go X minus 0 parentheses squared plus Y minus 0 parentheses squared. You could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. And then you always take your radius squared, and 3 squared is 9. Now, if I was doing this, instead of writing it like this, I would just say x squared plus y squared equals 9. If your center is 0, okay? Now, if we look at this one right here, when I'm deciding what my center of the circle is, what I do is I take the opposite of each of these. So this is a -3, so my x would be a +3. This is a +4, so my y would be -4. Do you guys get that? And then for your radius, you take the square root of that. And the square root of 4 is 2. So our answer would be what? B? Okay, everybody understand that? Alright, so let's go back to our first page. And in this one right here, they're showing us our center of our circle is 3, 2. And then we could find the radius just by counting here. And every like square across like that would be 1. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 across. And that is your radius then. If you went to write the equation, knowing the center and the radius, what you do in that case is you go x and you do the opposite of this. This is a +3, so we'd subtract 3, and it's in parentheses squared, plus y, and we do the opposite of that too, so we'd go -2 in parentheses squared, equals our radius squared, which is 16. Okay? Now, let's go here and let's try these. Now, first of all, we don't want the diameter, we want the radius. So do you guys know if the diameter is 16, what's our radius? 8, right? Half of 16. Now when it's 0, 0, like I said, I don't do the parentheses squared, so I would just say x squared plus y squared equals, what do you think it would equal? 8 squared, which is 64. So you'd actually square it, and that would be your equation. Okay. Now, they get a little bit harder here. So when I go to write this, I always do x, and then I just do the opposite of this. That's -2, so it's +2 quantity squared, plus y, and then the opposite of that. And right now it's +3, so I'd subtract 3 quantity squared, and then it would equal the square root of 8 squared. What is that? It's just 8. When you square a square root, they cancel each other out, and so it would just be 8. Okay? So when you square a square root, they cancel each other out. Now, I'm going to be giving you some graph paper today, but there are times that they're going to tell you a center, and they're going to tell you another point on the circle. So if I was doing this one, it says that my center is over 3 down 4, right here. And then it goes through the point -1 down 4. Okay? Now again, my center is this one. My circle, this is a point on the circle. So really what our circle would look like, just so you know, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 spots over. So my radius would be 4. And if I wanted, you don't have to do this, but if I wanted to continue that circle, I could go up 1, 2, 3, 4 and put a dot, right 1, 2, 3, 4 and put a dot, down 1, 2, 3, 4 and put a dot. So my circle is really like that, okay? Now, what you need from this to write the equation is you always need your center, which is 3 -4, and you always need the radius. The radius, we would just count, and you can either count how many of these segments do you have, or you could do loops, 1, 2, 3, 4. So my radius is 4. Now I can go ahead and write the equation because I know the center as well as the radius. So in parentheses, I'd go x what? -3. Don't forget you need parentheses squared. Then it's a plus sign, another parenthesis, y plus 4, parenthesis squared, equals 16, because 4 squared is 16. Very good. Now if we go down here, this one, again, I would use graph paper for this. So I'll give you graph paper. If you get something like this, this is what I would do. The center goes through 0, 3. And it passes through the point 2, 0. Okay? This is my center. This is a point on the circle. So my radius is this right here. Okay? I can do 2 different things to find that radius, and really it's up to you which way you want to. One thing I could do, this point is 0, 3. And this point right here is 2, 0. Anyone want to take a guess of something we've learned that we could find now?
Pythagorean theorem.
Yes, Pythagorean theorem you can do on the graph, and that's the way I'm going to show it. What's a distance formula? You could use that distance formula on the top row, the 5th one, to find that radius. Personally, for me, if I had graph paper and my points were easy like that, I would just plot them. And what I want to know is the distance between the center and the point. So I would draw in a right triangle here. Do you guys remember doing that way back when? And then doing a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, what I typically do when I teach this is I'll say do the loops over 1, 2, so that's a 2. This is 1, 2, 3. And you get that this could be my A, this could be my B, this could be my C, okay? So if I do A squared plus B squared equals C squared, my A is 3 squared. All right, so A squared is 3 squared, B squared is 2 squared, and I'm looking for R or C, however you want to think of that. Now, 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4, okay? So 9 plus 4 is 13. That equals r squared. So do you guys get to find r? You take the square root of it. So r would be, we don't want a decimal. So what we're gonna do then is just leave it as root 13. If it was square root of 16, which is 4, then you would take the square root. But if it's the square root of something that you can do as a decimal, you don't want to take the square root. So now I know this is my radius, and I know that my center is at 0, 3. And now I'm ready to write my equation. Now, when you go to do your equation, if x or y has a 0, you don't have to do the parentheses squared. So x has a 0, so I would write that just as x squared plus. You could do the parentheses, x minus 0 parentheses squared, but you don't have to. Then you would go y, and if this is 3, how would I write that? Minus 3 in parentheses squared equals, what do you think that would be?
13.
Yes, because don't we square the radius? And when you square the square root of 13, that is 13. Now, I know some of you had worked ahead and already did the square root. And if you approximate that to like 2 decimal places and then square it, sometimes you'd get like 12.999. So that's why I would not do that. I would just leave it under the square root and then take the square of it, and you're gonna get the exact number. Okay, let's go to this last one here. So this gives us the equation, or the graph. We have to find the center from the graph. So here's my origin. So I'm gonna go over 1, 2, 3, up 2. So that center is 3, 2. Okay. Then I need the radius. Do you guys agree it's just 2? Right?
Yeah.
And now is it easy to write the equation? I would go x, what? Minus 3 parentheses squared plus y minus 2 parentheses squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. Yes. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Not too bad? Okay. Now, if we go to this page, this should be really quick, I would think, for you guys. So you're gonna get graph paper. They're gonna give you an equation. You're going to, maybe next to the graph paper, just tell me what the center and radius is, and then graph it. So in this one, what would our center be? 0, 0. And what would my radius be? 4. Okay? So over here, do you guys get that we'd go to 0, 0, and then you just count 4 to the right, 4 up, 4 to the left, and 4 down, and then make the best circle you can through that. If yours look like eggs or ovals or even almost like a diamond, don't worry about it. When I grade, here's what I look for. I look that you have the center dot, and I look for these 4 things. If this looks like a diamond, I'm not too worried about that. Okay? All right, now if I look at this one, what is my center? 1, 4. Very good. And the radius is 3. Very good. So I'm gonna go to my graph. Notice the origin is right here. So it's over 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4. And then my radius is 3. So just go 3 to the right, 3 up, 3 to the left, 3 down, and then we can make our circle. Okay? Alright, if we go down to this one, what is my center? Yep, and what is my radius? 4, very good. So I can go on this, I'm gonna go to -2, 0, and then I'm gonna go 4 in all 4 directions. 1, 2, 3, 4 with a dot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just make the best circle that you can. Okay, so get this one. The center would be, and the radius, 3, very good. 0, 1 is this point right here. So then I'd go 3 in all 4 directions. So something like that. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you, this first one looks hard, but it's not at all. Okay. There is going to be times that they give you some equations that aren't in the right form. So by being in the right form, we want the x squared and the y squared on one side. We want the radius squared on the other side. In this one, could I easily move that -4 to the other side? I could. Do you get that I could just rewrite this as x squared plus y squared? And if I brought that -4 over, wouldn't it just be 4? And then is it easy?
Yes.
Right? My center would be 0, 0, and my radius would be 2. So I'm gonna just super quick plot that. So you're gonna have this little circle around the origin that's 2 in each direction. Okay. Now we're gonna go down here. So this is gonna depend on, the last 2 problems that I'm gonna do is we're using something called completing the square, which you may or may not have done in Algebra 1. So some of you that had Mr. Check, I would think you did this last year. If you had, does Miss Style teach the advanced? Yeah. I think she taught this too, so we'll see what you guys think. So what you're gonna do when you get a question like this, where it has like x squared, x's, n numbers, y squared, y's, n numbers, is we're gonna rewrite it, and we're gonna rewrite it so that my x squared and my x are right next to each other. So I'm gonna write this as x squared plus 6x, okay? Then I know I have to do something called completing the square.
Here's a Valentine's for you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, guys. All right. Now, so in completing the square, you have to add something squared to this so that we can write it in parentheses squared. That's what completing the square is, okay? So we're gonna do that. Now I'm gonna write the y squared plus, or no, I'm sorry, I have a minus 6y, and I have to complete the square on this also. So it's going to be plus something squared here, okay? And then I want that number to be on the other side. So because that number is positive 9 on the left, do you guys get that it would be -9 on the right? Now this is going to look a little bit different from you guys doing completing the square in algebra, because we're doing completing the square twice. When you guys did it in algebra, you only had one of these 2, okay? So here are the rules for completing the square. To complete the square, the reason we're doing it is we want this to get into something like x plus or minus something squared, okay? And how we decide what this number is we take half of this number 6 and we put it right here, okay? So half of 6 is 3. So what I just did is I added 3 squared to the left side, and because it's an equation, whatever I add to the left, I have to add to the right. Okay, whatever you add to the left, you have to add to the right. Now, what do you think I would add here? Okay, yeah, most people would say that, and it wouldn't be wrong. Oh, yeah, actually. So when you go to put the number in here, don't worry about if it's plus or minus. Just think of it as a 6 for this, and take half of it again. So just the 3, okay? Then we're gonna add that 3 squared to the right side also, okay? Now, does this look familiar to you? So when you complete this square with these 3 terms, okay, you make your parentheses and you put a squared there. And we want it to be in this form. So here's what we do. We take the x and we put it there. Just the x, not the x squared. We take whatever sign is in front of our middle term and we bring that down next. Okay? And then we take whatever is in parentheses, but we don't square it. Just whatever is there, and we put it right here. Does that look familiar? You
No.
think you did that?
No.
Okay. It's something they try to get to in your Algebra 1 classes, but maybe they didn't. Okay, now if I go to this, same thing. What do you think I'd bring down? The y, the minus, right? So you bring down the y, the sign in front of your middle term is minus, and then the 3, right? Now remember before Lexi said she wondered if we put a negative 3 here? The reason we don't worry about that is we take care of that negative when we bring that minus sign down. So that's why we don't have to worry about that. Okay, now let's try to do this in our heads. Isn't 3 squared 9?
Yes.
Isn't negative 9 plus 9 0?
Yes.
Plus 9, so isn't this just 9?
Right.
Okay.
How come the 6s just disappear? Like, why don't we do anything with the 6s?
Okay, so that's a really good question. If you now took this x plus 3 and you squared it, okay, to do that you'd have to go x plus 3 times x plus 3, and you'd have to FOIL it, and then you would get this. A lot of people look at this and think it's just x squared plus 3 squared, so it should just be x squared plus 9, and then that doesn't really work, okay? All right, so now that we have this, I'm gonna write it down here. X plus 3 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 9. Can I say now what my center is?
Yes.
Negative 3, positive 3? And my radius would be 3. So now I can go up and graph that. So at negative 3, positive 3, I have a point, and my radius was 3. So I go 3 out in all 4 directions, and this is my answer. Okay, was that super hard? We're gonna try one more and then we'll be done. Okay, so same thing. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do our x squared, and we're gonna put that negative 8x by it, and then we're gonna go plus something squared, okay? And then over here, I could do this right now. Over here I have that negative 8 already over there. And do you guys agree I have to add something squared there? Okay. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take plus my y squared. Anyone know what I'd put next? Plus 2y
Plus 1 squared.
plus something squared, which would be plus something squared. And Christian's right. Wouldn't this be a 1 and this be a 1? And what would this be? 4. So this would be a 4. Okay? Now I'm to the point where I can do my completing the square. So completing the square is taking this and putting it as a binomial, which is 2 terms. So what would it be?
X minus 4.
Yep, x subtract 4 quantities squared. And then what would the next one be?
Y plus 1.
Plus 1 quantities squared. Okay. And then negative 8 plus 16 plus 1 is 9. Okay. So now I can say what my center is. What is that? 4 negative 1, and my radius is 3. So if I go down, my center is 4 negative 1, and my radius is 1, 2, 3 in all 4 directions. Was it hard today? Questionable?
Kinda starts out hard and once you start to get it,
This is interesting. I don't know why I copied. Let's see what I did.
what'd you say?
These are the same. I don't know which one you want to copy down, but this is also on Schoology. So these are the problems we're doing. These 5 are the ones you have to graph. Okay? So these aren't separate problems. These are just saying those 5 are the ones you have to graph. Okay? So there's about 19 problems.
Maybe 20, 21?
You have the graph paper?
Yeah, we're just.
Yes.
Okay, if I say I did an energy drink, tell me no.
Yeah.
You think I wouldn't have when you?
Because I'm actually dying. I have a headache. And
Okay.
it's got shaky. So, if you see me with the energy drink again, just tell me no and take it.
Slap her hand.
You know, I'm saying like, where are you going? You should know how bad. It's not that bad, Lexi. It's not that bad. Elena is Lexi.